Right, let's talk about measure of dispersion or measures of variability. So it's very much possible that we have a sample size where the mean value is same for, let's say, 4 or 5 different samples, and the spread or the variability is different. The simplest measure of variability in a sample is range, and this is basically the difference between the largest and smallest sample values. So if you have a look at this particular figure, we have three samples, right? The mean value is identical for all uh, three samples. However, you can see the variability is quite different. So let's move on to the second uh, measure of variability. Uh, Sample variance is basically the square of sample standard deviation, and so if we have a sample and the standard deviation or variance is large, then this means that data points within the data set, they are far from mean values. In quality control example, you want to make sure that products have small variation. So this means that if they have small variations, we will have less rejections and products will be closer to their mean value. In other words, they will be in my upper control limit and lower control limit. Here is the depiction of standard deviation visually. So we have two different samples. One is this red population and second one is the blue one. So here we can see that red data points, they are closer to one another and to the mean value also. So here we will have a very small standard deviation. However, for the blue, the data points are very far from the mean, right? So that's why it will have a very high standard deviation. Here you can see that the standard deviation for red sample is 10 and for blue it is 50. um, um, there are other measures that are frequently used to analyze a collection of data: skewness and kurtosis, right? So skewness is the lack of the symmetry of the data. So negative skewed, right? And here we have positive skewed. We have discussed that in histograms portion also. Positively skewed, negatively skewed, and this is like right tailed and this is left tailed. Kurtosis provides information regarding shape of the population distribution, regarding the peaks and how heavy tails of a distribution is. So here you can see that most of the mass is in the middle, and here it's more kind of a spread. And here we don't have that much of um, heaviness of the tails. Let's talk about population and sample. So population is basically set of all items that possesses a characteristic of interest, and then we already discussed that sample is a subset of a population, and what are the 3-4 reasons to sample from a population. Eh, we discussed it already. It's because data collection is a difficult process. It's time consuming, it requires a lot of resources, money, raw material, maybe availability is a problem. So that's why we are basically sampling instead of analyzing or collecting data for whole population. Probability distributions. So a probability distribution is a mathematical model that relates the value of a variable with the probability of occurrence of that value in the population. There are two types of probability distributions. One is continuous distributions, and second one is discrete distributions. Uh, a discrete random variable is an random variable whose possible values either constitute a finite set or else can be listed in an infinite sequence in which there is a first element, a second element, and so on. So here we are interested that what is a random variable. So random variable is simply an outcome of an experiment where um, discrete random variable is the one in which we can basically, it's countably infinite, so such as number of people absent or number of defects in a product. Such things, they are mm, continuous discrete random variables, and discrete random variables will follow discrete distributions. A continuous distribution, when the variable being measured is expressed on a continuous scale, its probability distribution is called a continuous discrete distribution. So the probability distribution of a metal layer thickness is continuous, and then in that we will be talking about continuous random variables. So let's say if we are saying, okay, draw a point on a line, any random. So because there are infinite points on a line, and then I'm telling you that, okay, draw a point on a football and roll it, and then I'm asking you that what is the probability that that particular point will touch the ground or touch the floor. And now this is a continuous distribution scenario because there are, or there could be, infinite points on surface of a football. So probability for discrete one, it's called probability mass function, and for sometimes called, but for continuous one it is called probability density function. It's called density because there are infinite points in an interval, so we cannot assign a probability to that. So let's say if I am tossing a coin, the probability of getting tail would be 50, probability of getting a head would be 50. So this is a discrete. I can like assign probabilities. However, in case of a continuous scenario, if I'm saying, okay, what is the probability of a point, right? We are taking example of a football, but then question is that how many points on that football? So someone could say infinite. So right, then the probability of that point being chosen would be almost zero, because we have infinite points. So that is why it is called probability density functions. This is a little important to remember for students. Probability mass function, yes, as we discussed, it's for discrete, and here we are throwing a die. Probability of getting 1 is 1 by 6, probability of getting 2 is 1 by 6, probability of 3 is getting 1 by 6, probability of getting 4 is 1 by 6, probability of getting 5 is 1 by 6, and probability of getting 6 is 1 by 6. So um, here is the probability, and here are the outcome, the values of x. Like I discussed that probability density function is for continuous, and because for probability density function, the value of x at a specific value of x does not have any meaning, because we have infinite points in an interval. So that was the logic behind it. Here are a few common distributions, discrete distributions. Famous one are Bernoulli's binomial, geometric Poisson, and common distributions which we are using: triangular, exponential, normal distribution, F distribution, beta distribution, Weibull, and two-sided power square distribution as well, along with uniform distribution.